The arrival of the Vorzan Armada. The Vorzan Collective's war fleet tore through the fabric of space-time with the confidence of a predator that had never known defeat. 317 vessels emerged from their quantum tunnels at the heliopause of the Sol system, their biomechanical hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that spelled doom in a dozen conquered languages. Supreme Commander Zalthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, his four eyes scanning the tactical displays with barely concealed amusement. His chitinous armor gleamed under the ship's organic lighting, and his mandibles clicked together in what passed for Vorzan laughter. "So this is the home of the great humanity," he said, his voice a wet, gurgling sound that his translator rendered into cold, mocking tones. "I expected more from a species so eager to spread across their little system." His second-in-command, Warmaster Threx, approached with the ritualistic deference required in Vorzan hierarchy. "Supreme Commander, our scouts report exactly what our intelligence predicted. Primitive fusion drives, no energy shields, and weapons technology at least 2 centuries behind Galactic Council standards. Their largest vessels are cargo haulers with minimal defensive capabilities." Zalthor's laugh echoed through the bridge, and his officers joined in, a chorus of clicks, hisses, and guttural sounds that celebrated their inevitable victory. The Vorzan Collective had conquered 43 species in the past 2 centuries. What was one more? "Initiate standard intimidation protocol," Zalthor commanded. "Let them see what true power looks like. Broadcast on all frequencies." The fleet began its inexorable advance into the solar system, moving in a formation perfected over countless conquests, a massive wedge designed to inspire terror. The lead ships were dreadnoughts, each one 3 kilometers long, covered in weapon ports that glowed with barely restrained destructive potential. Behind them came cruisers, destroyers, and carrier ships breeding with warrior drones that could strip a planet of all life in days. The broadcast went out in every language humanity had shared with the galactic community. "People of Earth, you have been judged by the Vorzan Collective. Your system contains resources we require. Your species will serve as labor for our industrial complexes. Resistance is futile. Surrender within 1 planetary rotation, or we will demonstrate why 70% of the galaxy fears our name. This is your only warning." The message repeated, cycling through human languages with perfect pronunciation. Arabic, Mandarin, English, Spanish, Hindi, Russian. The Vorzans had done their homework, but Earth remained silent. Zalthor waited, watching the blue-green planet hanging in the distance like a jewel ready to be claimed. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Still no response. "Perhaps they're too primitive to understand the gravity of their situation," Threx suggested. "Should we destroy one of their outer settlements as a demonstration?" "Patience," Zalthor said, though his mandibles clicked with irritation. "Let them tremble a while longer. Fear is its own weapon." What the Supreme Commander didn't know, what his advanced sensors somehow failed to detect, was that in 17 different locations throughout the solar system, human eyes were watching, calculating, waiting. And behind those eyes, humanity was smiling. Galactic Council's emergency session 17,000 light-years from Sol. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session within the crystalline chambers of the Nexus Station. Representatives from 47 member species materialized through holographic projection, their forms shimmering in the vast circular chamber. Ambassador Cathren of the Velixian Concordat was the first to speak, his crystalline body refracting the chamber's light into rainbows of distress. "We must intervene. The Treaty of Non-Interference was never meant to be a death sentence for emerging species." "The treaty is clear," countered High Arbiter Moldax, a towering insectoid whose compound eyes showed no emotion. "We cannot involve ourselves in conflicts between non-member species and established powers. Humanity knew the risks when they refused collective membership status." Catherine's form flickered with anger. "They refused because they wanted to maintain their independence. That's not a crime, it's their right. A right that may cost them everything," said Ambassador Julin, a being of pure energy contained within a magnetic field. Her voice carried genuine sorrow. "The Vorzan Collective has never failed to conquer a species ever, and humanity has only been in space for, 80 years? 93, Catherine corrected quietly. I was there when they first achieved faster-than-light travel. I watched their first delegation arrive at this very station, so full of hope and wonder. The memory played in Catherine's mind. President Elena Vasquez, then just an ambassador, standing before the council with her small human delegation. They had been so eager, so enthusiastic about joining the galactic community. But when the terms of membership included surrendering sovereignty to council jurisdiction, humanity had politely but firmly declined. "We've fought too hard for our freedom to give it away," Vasquez had said. "We'll find our own path among the stars." The council had respected that decision. Most species did. But the Vorzan collective saw it as weakness, a species ripe for the taking. "We've all seen the intelligence reports," said Councillor Bextar, a massive aquatic being whose translated voice bubbled with resignation. "Earth has no significant military fleet. Their orbital infrastructure is purely commercial and scientific. They have weapons, yes, but nothing capable of fighting off the Vorzan armada. The battle, if you can even call it that, will be over in hours. Then we will witness the extinction of a species," Catherine said bitterly. "And we will do nothing because of bureaucratic protocol." High Arbiter Moldax's antennae twitched. "We will observe and document as we have done for every species that chose independence. That is the law." The chamber fell silent as the holographic displays activated, showing real-time feeds from long-range sensors positioned throughout the galaxy. In the center of the chamber, the Sol system appeared in miniature, a small yellow star with its family of planets, and surrounding it, the menacing red signatures of the Vorzan fleet. Catherine had tried to contact President Vasquez directly, sending 12 urgent messages over the past 3 days. Only one had been answered, and the response had been cryptic. "Thank you for your concern, old friend. Humanity will handle this in our own way. Watch closely. You might be surprised." Now watching the Vorzan fleet advance, Catherine could only hope his faith in humanity wasn't misplaced. Earth's weakness on display Vorzan scout ships swept through Earth's orbital space like sharks circling prey. Their sensors probed every satellite, every space station, every piece of human technology they could find. "Just as pathetic as we expected," reported Scoutmaster Vex from his nimble Corvette. "I'm detecting weather satellites, communication relays, and what appears to be a scientific research station near their moon. No weapons platforms, no shield generators, no automated defense systems." On the Eternal Conquest, Zalthor reviewed the data with growing satisfaction. "What about their lunar colony?" "Approximately 50,000 inhabitants, mostly scientists and miners. Some basic industrial facilities, no military presence whatsoever. And their asteroid mining operations, scattered throughout the belt. Small operations, lightly crewed. They use primitive robotic systems for most of the work. Supreme Commander, I'm not detecting anything that could threaten even our smallest vessel." Zalthor's mandibles clicked in what could only be described as contempt. "Threx, what does our psychological profile say about this species?" The War Master pulled up the relevant files. "Humans are classified as a Type 3 emerging species. They're emotionally volatile, prone to internal conflicts, and have spent most of their recorded history fighting among themselves. Their planet is divided into nearly 200 separate political entities, though they've recently formed what they call a United Earth government. Our analysts believe this government is weak and primarily symbolic." "In other words," Zalthor said, "they're fractured, inexperienced, and completely unprepared for interstellar warfare." "Precisely, Supreme Commander." Another round of clicking laughter spread through the bridge. Several junior officers openly mocked the humans' primitive technology, comparing it to children playing with toys. "Set course for their moon," Zalthor ordered. "We'll establish our forward command base there. Once we control Luna, Earth will have no choice but to surrender. I want to be drinking their water and breathing their air within 3 days." The fleet adjusted its trajectory, the massive biomechanical ships turning with surprising grace. Their destination, Luna, humanity's oldest off-world settlement, home to the Armstrong City colony and the site of humanity's first extraterrestrial footprints. As the Vorzan dreadnoughts approached the moon, their sensors continued their detailed scans. They detected the colony's life support systems, its mining operations, its small spaceport. Everything was exactly where it should be, functioning normally, showing no signs of military preparation. What the Vorzan sensors didn't detect, what they were specifically designed not to detect, were the 17 quantum-encrypted signals being transmitted from seemingly innocuous satellites, scattered throughout the system. Signals so faint, so perfectly camouflaged as background radiation, that only receivers specifically designed to find them could register their existence. Deep in the Kuiper Belt, surrounded by ice and rock, those signals were being received. In the asteroid belt, hidden among millions of tumbling rocks, those signals were being acknowledged. Beneath the ice of Europa, in facilities that shouldn't exist, those signals triggered a sequence of events decades in the making. And on Mars, in underground complexes that official records claimed were abandoned mining operations, thousands of men and women read those signals and began final preparations. The Vorzans saw weakness. They saw prey. They didn't see the trap. 4. The waiting game 500 meters beneath the surface of Antarctica, in a facility that appeared on no maps and existed in no official records, President Elena Vasquez stood before a holographic display that showed the entire solar system in real-time tactical detail. She was 67 years old, her hair silver, her face lined with the weight of decisions that would define humanity's future. She had been a fighter pilot in her youth, then a general, then Secretary of Defense, and finally President of the United Earth Government. Every step of her career had been preparing her for this moment. "They're taking the bait," said Fleet Admiral James Chen, standing beside her. He was younger, 52, with the bearing of a man who had spent his entire adult life preparing for a war he hoped would never come. The display showed the Vorzan fleet approaching Luna, confident and unopposed. 317 red dots moving toward a blue sphere that appeared completely defenseless. "How long until they're in position?" Vasquez asked. 47 minutes, Madam President. They're moving exactly according to our projections. And our people on Luna? The last civilian transport left 3 hours ago. Armstrong City is completely evacuated. Only automated systems remain, maintaining the illusion of normal operations. Vasquez nodded, her expression neutral despite the storm of emotions churning inside her. Every decision, every sacrifice, every secret for the past 20 years had been leading to this moment. Behind them, the command center buzzed with controlled activity. Hundreds of officers monitored their stations, coordinating a military operation so vast and so secret that even most world governments didn't know its full scope. "Display protocol Ragnarok status," Chen ordered. The holographic display shifted, and suddenly the empty solar system came alive with green icons. Hundreds of them, scattered across billions of cubic kilometers of space. Admiral Chen couldn't help but smile. 20 years, Madam President. 20 years of every nation on Earth contributing resources to this project. 20 years of construction in secret. 20 years of the greatest deception in human history. Vasquez remembered it all. The day first contact was made, the wonder and excitement. Then the slow, creeping realization that the galaxy was not the peaceful federation that humanity's science fiction had imagined. It was dangerous, competitive, and full of species that saw Earth as either a prize or a threat. The Galactic Council had seemed benevolent, offering membership and protection. But the fine print revealed the cost: sovereignty, resources, and the right to make humanity's own decisions. And beyond the Council lurked species like the Vorzan Collective, conquerors who preyed on the weak and unprepared. So humanity had made a choice. They would smile, be friendly, and appear weak. They would share their culture, their music, their literature. They would send diplomats who spoke of peace and cooperation, and in secret, they would prepare for war. Project Ragnarok had begun with a simple question. What if first contact goes wrong? The answer required resources from every nation, volunteers from every country, and the cooperation of political leaders who spent decades maintaining the greatest lie ever told. The public knew about the moon colony, the Mars settlements, the asteroid mining operations. What they didn't know was that 60% of those civilian operations were covers for military construction facilities. "Show me the fleet status," Vasquez ordered. The display zoomed to different locations across the solar system. In the Kuiper Belt, disguised as a research station studying long-period comets, the first strike group waited, 73 destroyers designed for rapid attack. In the asteroid belt, hidden among millions of rocks and registered as mining operations, the heavy battle group held position. 147 cruisers and battleships, each one carrying enough firepower to level a city. Around Jupiter's moons, where official records showed only scientific outposts, the carrier group prepared to launch, 91 ships equipped with fighter craft and long-range missiles. On Mars, beneath the red sand where abandoned settlements supposedly lay empty, the reserve fleet completed final system checks. 126 vessels of various classes, the newest and most experimental designs humanity had created. 437 warships total. More than the Vorzan fleet, and every single one had been built, crewed, and trained in absolute secrecy. The Vorzans think we're primitives, Chen said quietly. They think our silence is fear. Let them, Vasquez replied. Fear makes you cautious. Contempt makes you careless, a communication officer approached. Madam President, we're receiving another message from Ambassador Catherine. He's very worried. Vasquez felt a pang of guilt. Catherine had been a true friend to humanity, one of the few aliens who had genuinely cared about Earth's well-being, but she couldn't reveal the truth, not even to him. If word leaked, everything would be for nothing. Send him the same response as before, she said. Thank him for his concern, and tell him to watch closely. Yes, ma'am. On the display, the Vorzan fleet continued its approach to Luna, spreading out in what they clearly thought was an intimidating formation. Zalthor's flagship took the lead, its biomechanical hull pulsing with what the Vorzans probably thought was terrifying power. They're broadcasting their surrender demands again, reported the communications officer. Same message, more threats. Still no response? Vasquez asked. No, ma'am. As ordered, we're maintaining complete radio silence. Good. Admiral Chen checked his chronometer. 32 minutes until they reach Luna. Madam President, once we initiate Protocol Ragnarok, there's no going back. This will change everything. I know, Vasquez said softly. For 20 years we've been the new kids in the galaxy. Friendly, harmless, eager to learn. After today we'll be something else entirely. What will we be? Vasquez watched the red dots closing in on her species' first off-world home. She thought about the billions of people on Earth, sleeping peacefully, unaware that their entire future was being decided in the next hour. She thought about the colonists on Mars, the miners in the Belt, the scientists on Europa, all of them trusting their leaders to keep them safe. We'll be survivors, she said finally. We'll be the species that refuse to be prey. Chen nodded and turned to the command center. All stations prepare for Protocol Ragnarok execution. Set fleet status to Condition 1. Decrypt final targeting packages and distribute to all vessels. This is not a drill. Throughout the command center, officers acknowledged the orders with quiet professionalism. 20 years of preparation, of drills, of hoping this day would never come. Now it was real. Vasquez opened a private channel to every ship in the hidden fleet. Her voice would be heard by over 200,000 men and women who had volunteered for the most dangerous mission in human history. This is President Vasquez, she began. In a few minutes, you'll receive the order to decloak and engage. The enemy doesn't know you exist. They think we're helpless. They think we're weak. They're about to learn that humanity's greatest strength has always been our ability to adapt, to prepare, and to do whatever it takes to protect our own. Some of you will not survive this battle. I wish I could promise otherwise, but I won't lie to you. You volunteered knowing the risks. You trained knowing you might never see your families again. You represent the best of humanity, its courage, its ingenuity, its refusal to surrender. The galaxy has underestimated us. They've laughed at us. They've seen us as prey. Today we show them who we really are. Today we show them that humanity doesn't beg for mercy. We fight, we endure. We win. Godspeed to you all. And remember, you're not fighting for glory. You're fighting for every human who will ever look up at the stars and dream of exploring them. Make them proud. She closed the channel and looked at Admiral Chen. It's time. Chen drew a deep breath and spoke into his command link, his voice steady and clear. All ships, all stations, all personnel. This is Fleet Admiral Chen. Execute Protocol Ragnarok. Repeat. Execute Protocol Ragnarok. Let's show them what happens when you underestimate humanity. Throughout the solar system, in 17 different locations, the codes were received and acknowledged. Stealth systems that had been running for decades began powering down. Weapon systems that had never been fired in anger came online. Engines that had been cold and silent roared to life, and in the command center beneath Antarctica, President Elena Vasquez watched as 437 green icons on her display suddenly began to move. The waiting was over. At the signal, Supreme Commander, Zalthor was reviewing the surrender terms he would offer the humans when his sensor officer made a sound that, in Vorzan biology, indicated extreme confusion. Supreme Commander, I'm detecting anomalous readings throughout the system. Anomalous how? Zalthor asked, not particularly concerned. I'm not certain. There are energy spikes appearing in multiple locations. The computer is classifying them as impossible. Impossible is not a sensor reading, Threx snapped. Be specific, the sensor officer's mandibles clicked nervously. Fusion signatures. Hundreds of them. Appearing suddenly throughout the system as if what? As if ships are decloaking, sir. But that can't be right. Our intelligence indicated. Show me, Zalthor commanded. His amusement evaporating, the tactical display updated, and the Supreme Commander's four eyes widened in disbelief. The empty Kuiper belt was suddenly crowded with 73 ship signatures. The harmless asteroid belt now showed 147 military-grade vessels. Jupiter's scientific moons were launching what appeared to be carriers and support ships. And Mars, the supposedly abandoned, half-terraformed Mars, was revealing an entire fleet rising from beneath its surface. That's over 400 ships, Threx whispered. Where did they come from? Zalthor demanded. Our intelligence said. Our intelligence was wrong, the sensor officer said, his voice trembling. Supreme Commander, I'm analyzing the signatures. These aren't converted civilian vessels. These are purpose-built warships. Heavily armed. Some of them are reading larger than our dreadnoughts. On the Eternal Conquest's bridge, the clicking and hissing stopped. Every Vorzan present stared at the display in shocked silence. Get me a tactical analysis, Zalthor ordered. Now. They're positioning for a full fleet engagement, the tactical officer reported. Coordinated movements. Professional formations. Supreme Commander, these humans have been planning this. They lured us in. For the first time in his long military career, Zalthor felt something cold settle in his thorax. It was a feeling he had seen in countless enemies over the years, but never experienced himself. Fear. All ships, battle stations, he commanded. Prepare for a transmission cut through every Vorzan channel, overriding their communications with an ease that suggested the humans had been inside their systems all along. The face that appeared on every screen was human, female, older with eyes that held absolutely no fear. Supreme Commander Zalthor, President Elena Vasquez said, her voice calm and measured. I am Elena Vasquez, President of the United Earth Government. You came to our system expecting prey. You broadcast your threats expecting terror. You approached our homes expecting surrender. You were wrong about all of it. Humanity has spent 20 years preparing for this exact scenario. While we smiled and played the role of naive newcomers, we built a fleet. While we attended council meetings and spoke of peace, we trained 200,000 men and women for war. While you laughed at our primitive technology, we studied every species you'd conquered and learned from their mistakes. You have 30 seconds to turn your fleet around and leave our system. If you do, we'll let you go. Consider it a lesson in humility, free of charge. If you don't, we will show you exactly how humans fight when you threaten our home. 29 seconds, Commander. Choose wisely. The transmission ended. Zalthor stared at the display, his mind racing. Retreat from primitives? Impossible. The shame would destroy his career, his family, his entire legacy. But those 437 ships were real, and they were moving with a precision that spoke of years of training. Supreme Commander, Threx asked quietly, your orders? Zalthor's pride warred with his survival instinct. He was Vorzan. His species had conquered 43 others. They didn't run from primitives. All ships, he said, his voice hard, prepare to engage. We'll crush these humans and teach the galaxy what happens when you defy the Vorzan collective. 20,000 light-years away, Ambassador Catherine watched his display in the Galactic Council chamber, his crystalline form blazing with colors that represented joy, pride, and terror all mixed together. Watch closely, he said to the assembled representatives. You're about to see something the galaxy has never witnessed before. You're about to see what happens when you underestimate humanity. And in the command center beneath Antarctica, Admiral Chen looked at President Vasquez and said quietly, they've made their choice. Vasquez nodded, her expression grim but determined. Then we make ours. All ships weapons-free. Show them first human fleet. Throughout the solar system, 437 human warships accelerated toward battle. Their crews ready, their weapons hot, their purpose absolute. The Vorzans had laughed at humanity. They would never laugh again.